Well, hello everybody, it's Mr. Lee David Carter here, and I wanted to talk about another important topic, and I really wanted to speak about this based on experience and so forth. Now, I want to talk about dysphoria, how there's a debate on how it can be seen as, to many, the majority, that it's a mental illness, firstly, and there'll be a part one, and then on a part two, I'll be talking about whether it can be seen as genetic, because there's obviously a lot of controversy around that too, not just it being a mental illness. So on this podcast, I'm going to be talking about gender dysphoria being the debate of it being genetic, okay? So now dysphoria, gender dysphoria, it's been around for thousands of years, right back to ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, where they used to cross-dress, okay, to the opposite of their assigned sex at birth, and regarding their gender identity, there was no medical intervention in them days. So they didn't have hormone treatment, they didn't have gender reassignment surgery, so they didn't have any kind of coping mechanism to sort of decrease the dysphoria that they're feeling. Okay, so now, gender identity, the sense of being male or female, basically, develops early on in life from the age of 2 years up. And most children identify with their own gender and typically consistent with the sex that they were born with, okay? Now, I mentioned on national TV a decade ago how, while going through the top surgery, I'd gone through the top surgery, and I appeared on national TV and I explained how I believed it was genetic. So I really wanted to get out there and talk about this. I also mentioned on radio interviews, how I believed how the mind and the body is an unusual thing. So this is really important why I'm speaking about this topic right now, okay? The genetic side, whether it's genetic, behavioural, psychological, the debate around it. So I really wanted to talk about this because I do believe it's genetic. I'm going to explain why, okay? Now, so I've explained this on radio, I've explained it on TV, okay? Now, obviously, so as I was going back to saying, being the gender identity being consistent with the sex that you were born with at birth, and however, there's a small percentage, majority of people that have suffered clinical distress, should I say, because their sex at birth does not reflect their gender identity. And many will undergo medical treatment, they'll use whatever methods, coping mechanisms they need to use to decrease the dysphoria, to align with who they are and what they were signed with at birth, basically. So speaking about that, as I've said before, they'll use hormone treatment, medical intervention, they'll use even go as far as surgery, and some of them may not go either. They may just, basically cross-dress, okay? Now, saying that, when speaking about this subject, the debate is this. Now, of course, those will take the hormone treatment, maybe just that alone. They'll, if you're a female to male, you'll use testosterone, and male to female, will use estrogen, okay? However, saying that, over the years, there's been such an increase now in dysphoria to what it was a decade ago when I went through the process, okay? There's like 521, should I say, males out of 100,000 that will go through the transition to female, and there will be like 265 females that will go out of 100,000, looking at statistics, that will go from female to male. Okay, so there has been an increase, and it's increasing even more. Okay, now scientists have focused on the belief that it was a psychological condition, suggesting it could be influenced by family dysfunctional dynamics or childhood trauma experiences, should I say, which I mentioned before on radio interviews, the effects of dysphoria and coping mechanisms that may have contributed towards it, should I say, dysphoria. However, there's biological scientists, and they point out towards a biological basis called, should I say, endocrine, a neurobiological and genetic factors that are involved in this. For example, the increased prevailing, should I say, of gender dysphoria has been observed among people whereby they've experienced a typical prenatal androgen exposure in the utero while developing in the mother's womb. So scientists have actually proven biologically that there is a mix-up in the genes while the baby is developing in the mother's womb. And also saying that while the mother is pregnated and the child is developing in the womb, that they are also saying that the brain does not connect with the sex of the child, of the mother, should I say, in the womb regarding this, and they are signed with, with the birth, should I say, that they've been assigned with. And this is why I mentioned a decade ago when I was on national TV that I do believe it's genetic, okay? And I mentioned it on radio, because even on the gender spectrum system, when it comes to one's gender identity, that functional variance may alter in the sex hormone, like the signalling, causing the typical sexual differentiation of the developing brains of those who, should I say, will later on in life, experience gender dysphoria. Now, I was born in 1968. I came from a different generation. It wasn't even spoken about or heard of, okay? And growing up as a child, I was boisterous. From the age of 2 years, I would play with a ball. I was boisterous. Behavioural wise, I was playing with boys' toys and doing all the things boys do from 2 years up. So the debate is, and the controversy, looking at the pros and the cons, how could I at that age, how could it be psychological or behavioural? To me, in my mind and in my heart and in my soul, it was genetic. Looking back and reflecting based on that alone. Suffering with gender dysphoria for over the last 40 years. So I do believe it's genetic, because things don't always go right, things go wrong, okay? And, so I wanted to get this out and speak about it, and I've spoken about it before, and to me, dysphoria is not psychological, and to me it cannot be seen as behavioural, and I wanted to speak about that because I've known this for years and researched it, and to me dysphoria can be seen as genetic. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you about this on part 1, all those out there that are suffering dysphoria and going through the symptoms and the coping mechanisms and what it is they've got to go through. And I'll be speaking on part 2 about dysphoria and the debate about it being a mental illness. And I'll be speaking about that as well, because I don't believe that dysphoria is a mental illness, and I work around mental health, and I'm going to explain why in part 2. So thank you for coming along on this journey and watching this video. Please press the subscribe button. You can reach me on www.leedavidcarter.com. If you need to ask me any questions, please give me some feedback on YouTube, or you can reach me at info@leedavidcarter.com, and you can ask me questions there anonymously, and I'll help you the best I can. So yeah, I'm going to sign off. I'm going to say love and light, namaste, and I'll see you in part 2 of this podcast, these debates. See you soon. Bye for now.